Hey, Brian. You said in this on this episode today, or at least you kind of implied it, that you said Democrats, more or less would hold Gavin Newsom's feet to the fire if he was going on vacation or something. He wasn't taking the problem seriously. And I mean, the reason I don't think Democrats would actually hold his feet to the fire is because, he's been effectively running that state into the ground for the last several years. I've been to that state multiple times, and I've seen the homelessness, I've seen the trash, and I've seen just how disgusting and brutal that state can be. So to think that, and Democrats never call him out on that, at least no big Democrats that I hear about. So he's been running that state into the ground, not having anything to do with these
How long has he been governor? How long has he been governor for?
Just a handful of years. He hasn't really been there that long.
So 5 years ago, they didn't have a homeless problem?
Oh, they did, but it's got worse. Okay. It's increased 8% since 2022.
Right, and why do you think it got worse 2022? You think that was Gavin Newsom policy, or was that COVID? You think COVID might add something?
COVID or
possibly. Okay, so let's start over here. Okay, so possibly sure. COVID. Okay, so if it's possibly COVID, how did you think the response to COVID was by Donald Trump?
See, you're trying to shift the conversation.
No, I'm not trying to. No, sir. Sir, I'm not trying to shift anything. You said Gavin Newsom was responsible for the horrible homeless in California. I asked you how long Gavin Newsom is. Hold on. You're putting a lot of blame on the homelessness, David. Let's have this conversation. And I said to you,
the number one
okay, and I
said, in the country.
I understand. It's also the biggest state, okay, per capita. But let's talk about this. I asked you how long he's been in there. You said yes, several years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you admitted to me that they've always had a homeless problem there. And then in 2022, 2000, and there's cause and effect. What policy? And you admitted that COVID had a lot to do with it, which was, by the way, not Gavin Newsom's fault. In fact, I would say the opposite. I thought Gavin Newsom did a really good job during COVID, by the way. I'm sure you would probably disagree with that because you didn't want businesses closed down, but a lot of lives were saved in California. So if COVID was a big problem and why the homelessness is there now, name me some policies that Gavin Newsom implemented when he became governor to now that you think led to the homeless problem.
I'm not saying he specifically implemented problems, but he's the one in charge, and he has yet to fully take.
And you can't come up, and you can't come up with one specific policy. And I can name you some policies on the other side. He took all motels that were being unused in facilities throughout the state and turned them into places where homeless people could get off the streets, get into a motel, and get a job. And it's worked, and it's also saved lives. They've also been working endlessly.
Then why is the homeless population increasing every single year?
I just told you. I gave you cause and effect. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the major reasons being COVID, and you can't name me one. See, this is David, I like it when you call into this show, and you seem like a really nice guy. But
well, I'm glad you remember me.
Well, I do, because I like these conversations I have with you, and you're always respectful to me, and I will always be respectful to you. With that being said, when you call in and you want to blame Gavin Newsom for something, then come up with a specific policy. Let me give you an example of what I am talking about, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The economy. Biggest tax breaks, top 1%. That hurts the economy. When Donald Trump, during COVID, didn't really talk about the vaccines very much. We had Operation Warp Speed. Didn't talk about the vaccines. Didn't really promote the vaccines at all. When he turned his coronavirus press conferences into campaign rallies and said 15 cases down to 0, it's going to be gone by Easter, that hurt the country. It's why part of the reason why the COVID response here was so awful. So I can come up with policies that have worked under the Joe Biden administration. I'm sure there are some policies that worked under the Trump administration. But if you're going to criticize Gavin Newsom, give me some policies that you think led to the homeless problem in California. If not, then we need to move on to something else because you haven't given me any specifics. You're throwing stuff at a wall and hoping that it sticks. Gavin Newsom.
No. I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, you're asking me you're saying what policies have caused the homelessness problem.
Or led to it. Give me something that he's done.
Well, here's an example. It's the fact that they're just so lax on the rampant amount of drug abuse that's going on over there, and all these people are getting brutalized by all these drugs in the state. They don't even entertain the thought of using any policy or implementing a policy because it's not necessarily a big priority to them. They just don't care.
First of all, I disagree with you. He's put policies in place, implementing policies in place when it comes to drug use. But with that being said, again, Skid Row has been there for decades. I don't understand when you say it's the same argument that I hear with immigration.
Here's why, because that state is extremely far left. Mind you, it seems like it's actually turning red because people
really.
Seem to have
so you think there's now a big drug problem in
2020?
Is Florida left? Is Florida a big left state? You don't think they don't have?
It's kind of red. It's mostly red now.
Okay. Florida is a Republican state. They have huge drug issues in Florida, and they've had drug issues in Florida for decades. So please, sir, don't tell me this is a Democrat problem or liberal policies. It's not. It's an American problem. We've had issues with drugs. I look at drugs like I look at immigration. You want to nitpick and say, well, this state is under a Democrat. Listen, the entire country has issues when it comes to substance abuse, when it comes to gun violence, when it comes to the border. We've had these issues for decades. And if you're just going to blame one side of the aisle or homelessness, it's all Gavin Newsom in the state of California. This is why we don't get anywhere as a country.
Again, I'm not saying it's all Gavin Newsom, but I'm saying he simply adds fuel to the fire. You haven't blamed one Republican for any of the issues you've talked about in this conversation. I don't see any Republicans that have that is reaching that magnitude of problems in their states.
Really, you don't think Florida has magnitude of problems when it comes to substance abuse issues and drugs? Is that what you're claiming?
Not as bad.
Who's the governor of Florida? Per capita? California has more people. Who's the governor of Florida? I forgot. I don't know. Is that a Republican? Thank you. I believe he's a Republican. Last I checked. Texas, huge problems when it comes to homelessness and when it comes to issues when it comes to drugs. Who's the governor of Texas? I forgot.
Is it still Abbott? I don't
Remind me. Yes, correct, sir. It is still Abbott. He happens to be a Republican. We can go back and forth on this. The problem that I have is, if you're going to tell me that you think Newsom has made the homeless problem worse, then you have to give me actual policies that he has put in place, things he changed when he was governor that you think made the problem worse. Now, I can give you some issues or some policies that I think has improved, since putting in the implementation of getting homeless people off the streets, allocating funds, putting people in motels, rooms that were not used, and putting them to use. Thousands and thousands of people are off the streets. Is it enough? No. More needs to be done, not just in California, across the country.
It's not even close to enough. It's a Band-Aid on a massive open wound. I mean, all those things you said are true, but I mean, California is just becoming more expensive, and it's virtually impossible for people to live there, to the point where so many people, there's like an exodus in that state every single year because so many people are just tired of living there because the state it's become untenable for so many people. I mean, owning a home is simply out of the question in that state. Forget about the homeless problem. And I only mention the homeless problem because that's one of a million problems in California. It's not just bad, but it's unbelievably bad to the point where thousands of people every year leave.
Okay, and how is that Gavin Newsom's fault? You want to blame Democrats?
I'm not saying he specifically walked in and waved the magic wand and boom, he made all these problems and it's his fault.
He didn't.
But he has yet to make anything better. I mean, when you mentioned before he allocated funds, that state is insanely broke to the tune of billions of dollars.
So you care about people being able to buy homes at an affordable rate. You care about people not being taxed up the yin-yang. Is that a fair characterization of there's a reason why I'm asking. You care about that, right? You want hardworking Americans. Okay, great. Then why didn't you vote for Kamala Harris, who wanted to do a 25% down payment on a home for people that are struggling to live paycheck for paycheck? Why didn't you vote for Kamala Harris, who does not, hold on. I'm going to tell you who's going to pay for it. That was my next point. Donald Trump gave the biggest tax breaks to the top 1% in this country and his billionaire friends. Kamala Harris wanted to lower the tax bracket to 27% for income families that are making under $400,000 total income. Donald Trump is going to do the opposite, just like he did in his first administration. So I believe you, sir, David, when you say you think it's terrible that people can't afford a home, that people are losing homes. I'm with you 100% on that. Then why would you vote against your interest and vote for a guy by the name of Donald J. Trump, who does not want to give tax breaks to those that are struggling, who does not want to give a $25,000 down payment to people that are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck? Why do people like you vote against your own interests?
So when you're saying that she was going to tax other people, so basically other people are
the
paying
top
for
1%.
my house is what you're saying.
No, that's not how it works. She doesn't want to give.
If they're being taxed,
I'm going to explain it.
They have to come with that money
I'm
somewhere.
explaining it to you. She doesn't want to give the biggest tax breaks in decades to billionaires and CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Most Democrats agree with Kamala Harris that they want the rich to pay their fair share. Now, what do I mean by that? I'll tell you why. If you're making $25,000 a year, you shouldn't be paying the same percentage on taxes as somebody like an Elon Musk. But MAGA Republicans and the people, with all due respect, that you voted for, Donald Trump, do not want to change their tax bracket percentage-wise to the billionaires. You see, if billionaires paid a higher percentage on their taxes and those living paycheck to paycheck got a break on their taxes, which is exactly what Kamala Harris wanted to do, then the people that you
but
say
then those are other people paying for my house. They're paying a higher percentage. The government takes that money and then then they put $25,000 of it towards a house that I buy. How is that not taken from person A to pay for person B?
Because it's a loan, and over time you would have to pay it back. And you know why they'd be able to pay it back? Because Kamala Harris, wait for it, wanted to lower their taxes. It was in her plan that so many people, maybe people like you, said you didn't know what her plan was. She talked about it every day. She wanted to make...
No, she didn't. She waited
yes,
for weeks
she
to
did.
finally unveil this plan that she, by the way,
no, she
never
didn't. You're
brought
wrong.
up during her entire vice presidency.
You
all of a sudden, she came up with this plan.
Because she doesn't make policy as the vice president. Joe Biden makes policy. It's the job of the vice president to support the president. What the hell are you talking about? She doesn't implement policy. Joe Biden does. And when she ran for office for months, and I know this because I went to several of her rallies, in every single one of the rallies that I went to, she talked about that $25,000 down payment. She talked about how it was going to be paid, how it was going to be paid off. And when you give people that are struggling a lower percentage that they have to pay on their taxes, it means it gives them more money to get out there and spend. It allows them to save money. And when you tax and give tax breaks to the top 1%, which is what Donald Trump clearly did when he was in office, and he's going to do it again, the country suffers, and his billionaire friends, like the ones like Elon Musk, who donate hundreds of millions of dollars to his campaign, are the ones that are going to be making not billions, but trillions.
When you subsidize something, you simply, if houses... If everybody got a $25,000 subsidy towards a house, what do you think is going to happen to the already expensive housing market? They're going to say, hey, I can raise it by $25,000 because it's being subsidized by the government. That's how subsidies work. If the government said, hey, we're going to pay 50% of the bill for your house if you want to buy a house, what are mortgages companies going to do? They're going to just jack up the price of the house because they know the government's going to cover half of it.
So you don't think it's a good idea to help people buy homes and give them a $25,000 down payment, which eventually they would pay back. And the reason why you're against it is because you think they're going to raise the price of the homes. There are a lot of homes in this country, you just said it yourself, that are vacant and people can't afford to buy these homes. All I'm simply telling you, sir, is you're talking, and I believe you when you say you care about the people of California. You don't want people, to have to live paycheck to paycheck that can't afford homes. And I'm wondering, what is Donald Trump, the man who you voted for, I would assume, what is Donald Trump going to do policy-wise to help those in this country that are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck? What policies did he implement in 4 years, and what policies will he implement in the next 4 years that will help struggling families? Because I could give you a laundry list of the things that Joe Biden has done. What is Donald Trump going to do that you think is going to help struggling families living paycheck to paycheck buy homes? Because at least Kamala Harris had some, you might disagree with her policies, but she had them. What is Donald Trump going to do? What have you heard him say that he's going to do?
Well, depending on how you feel about tariffs, he's made a big case for tariffing other countries, and so
you think
hold on that money.
Hold on. So you think 25% tariffs is going to help? It's going to make it worse. You think 25?
No, not necessarily.
You think
it depends on how you look at it.
You think the tariffs at 25% are going to help this economy? Are you on? You really believe that?
No, it's a negotiating platform. It's basically telling countries, hey, you can't keep doing X, Y, and Z. If you're going to like China, for example, they dump all this cheap labor into our country, and they make it extremely hard for.
Okay, hold on, David. We're getting into the weeds here. We're getting into the weeds here.
Well, you have to have a policy.
Understood. You think that the 25% tariffs is a good policy to, number one, help this country, help the economy, and help struggling families that are living paycheck to paycheck buy homes. And you think that's a better policy than Kamala Harris putting a would have put a $25,000 down payment on those that are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. You're telling me that you think the tariffs, 25%, are a better policy when it comes to the economy in this country. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I'm not saying those tariffs are guaranteed to work. You're kind of dealing in absolutes where I'm saying, will the tariffs absolutely work? I'm saying it's a negotiating platform.
I know, but I asked you, David, what policies you think Donald Trump, is going to implement that you think will help the people that you say you're concerned about. And I believe you when you say you're concerned about these families.
And I think that policy, now granted, I could be wrong. I haven't seen a ton of history of tariffs in this country. What I'm saying now is what is currently going on is just, it's simply untenable. It's not doable. I mean, 2 out of 3 Americans basically live paycheck to paycheck. And I'm not blaming Biden or Harris. I'm not even saying all of it was Trump's fault. He has a decent amount of it to blame with how he handled COVID, but that was still a long time ago. But regardless,
you think Trump did a good job handling COVID?
No, I'm saying I don't think he did a good job handling COVID. I'm saying that was quite a long time ago. But what I'm saying is,
it wasn't that long time, and I think it has cause and effect when it has to do with the economy, when it has to do with homelessness, it has to do with immigrants crossing the border. I think it wasn't that long ago.
If you're going to talk about immigrants crossing the border, you can't ignore the fact. I mean, 10 million under Biden, and we're just supposed to say, oh yeah. But the bill that they introduced at the tail end of his administration was going to be this wonderful, magnificent bill. I mean, they flooded this country with illegal labor and illegal migrants, and surprise, surprise, they lost the election. I don't know what the hell they thought was going to happen by letting the border just effectively be wide open.
Okay, so that's a lie. The border is not wide open, and I'm wondering if you would understand
a border where you can just walk in casually is more or less wide open.
The border is not wide open. That's factually inaccurate.
10 million people came in. What else can you call it?
The border is not wide open. That is factually inaccurate, and there are less people crossing the border illegally today than they were when Donald Trump left office. I'm sorry if you don't like facts, but I can't get into the immigration conversation with you, David. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.